the world is at a crossroads. While many believe democracy is the go-to system, the truth is more complex. Did you know that almost 40% of the world's population still lives under authoritarian regimes? That's nearly 3 billion people. Shocking, right? But what's even crazier is that over 20% of the world's democracies have faced significant setbacks in the past decade, and some experts predict that we might be heading toward a global democratic recession. In this video, we're diving deep into the real battle between democracy and authoritarianism, systems that claim to offer freedom and security, but do they really deliver? Get ready to learn why power is never as simple as it seems. From history's power struggles to the mind games of modern politics, we'll explore how leaders rise, how they hold power, and what's at stake for you and the world. Trust me, you won't look at politics the same way again. Chapter 1: The Roots of Power. Where it all began. The story of democracy and authoritarianism begins long before modern politics. It all started in ancient Greece, around 500 BCE, when Athens introduced democracy. At the time, only free male citizens could vote, but this was revolutionary. Democracy, for the first time, let people choose their leaders instead of following a single ruler. Fast forward to Rome, where Caesar's rise marked a shift towards authoritarian control. His famous line, Veni, Vidi, Vici, meaning, I came, I saw, I conquered, was a perfect reflection of authoritarian power. Around the same time, other kingdoms were also expanding their power through monarchies, where kings ruled with absolute authority. Over the centuries, democracy spread, but authoritarianism found its own foothold in empires, from the Ottoman to the Russian Empire. Today, countries like China and North Korea still hold on to these centralized forms of rule. Interestingly, there are only about 20 countries today that can be considered true democracies. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit, about 40% of the world's population lives under authoritarian regimes. Ancient power struggles set the stage for this ongoing battle between the two. Chapter 2: Freedom versus Control. The mind games of politics. The political game often revolves around one key element: control. In democracies, leaders must appeal to public sentiment, often through the media or elections. But in authoritarian systems, control is direct. Leaders like Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un maintain power by controlling information and crushing dissent. In fact, over 60% of the world's population lives in a country with some form of internet censorship. The control of speech, media, and even social media is a tool for maintaining authority. Meanwhile, in democracies, freedom of speech is a fundamental right, but it's not always as free as it seems. In the US, for instance, political ads alone spent over $6 billion in the 2020 presidential election. That's a lot of money used to sway public opinion, making freedom feel a lot like manipulation. Research from the University of Oxford shows that 70% of democratic elections globally have seen some form of fake news or misinformation campaigns. It's mind games, where both systems use different tactics to maintain their power. Chapter 3: The Puppet Masters. How leaders gain and lose power. Power doesn't just come from elections. It's often about who's behind the throne. In democracies, party machines and lobbying groups play a huge role in who gets elected. In the US, just 3% of Americans donate over 70% of campaign funds. These influential figures are the puppet masters pulling the strings. In authoritarian regimes, leaders often use fear to control. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has used public executions to maintain power. According to a 2020 UN report, over 100,000 North Koreans are imprisoned for political reasons. It's not just about winning, it's about silencing opposition. On the other hand, democracies like India have seen prime ministers rise through political networks, such as Narendra Modi's rise within the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP. But even in democracies, power can be fragile. In the 2020 US election, voter turnout reached an all-time high, but the Capitol riots in January 2021 showed how easily the system could be threatened. The fight for power is often not about winning an election but keeping it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more deep dives into the political world. Chapter 4: The Clash of Ideologies. Which one is more sustainable? When we look at sustainability, authoritarianism often has the edge in the short term. It's easier to maintain control with fewer voices in the room. In 2016, China's GDP growth was 6.7%, despite a global economic slowdown. Its centralized decision-making allowed for swift action. Democracies, on the other hand, take longer to react. For instance, the US took nearly 4 years to pass the Affordable Care Act. But sustainability isn't just about economic growth. In authoritarian regimes, the lack of free speech can stifle creativity. In fact, Nobel laureates from free countries make up 75% of all Nobel Prizes awarded since 1901. Creative ideas thrive where free minds meet open debates. Long-term sustainability might look different for both systems. Authoritarian regimes may maintain stability, but democracies tend to foster innovation and societal progress, which could lead to more resilience over time. Chapter 5: The People's Voice. Is democracy dying or evolving? Are we witnessing the death of democracy? Or is it evolving into something new? In 2005, 62% of Americans believed that democracy was the best form of government. By 2020, that number dropped to 52%. It's not just about the US. Globally, democratic norms are slipping. According to the Freedom House's 2020 report, democracy declined in 25 countries, while authoritarianism increased in 36. But the shift isn't all bad news. In places like Chile and Tunisia, democracy is evolving. In 2019, Chile saw massive protests pushing for constitutional reform, reflecting that people are still hungry for democratic change. Young voters around the world, especially Gen Z, are also more politically active than ever before. They're pushing for reforms and challenging established power structures. Yet, in some cases, democratic institutions are being tested. Brazil's 2018 election saw far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro come to power, a shift that many saw as a step toward authoritarianism. In a world with rising populism, democracy is at a crossroads, evolving, but facing greater challenges than ever before. Chapter 6: The Global Showdown. Democracies struggle against authoritarianism. The ideological battle between democracy and authoritarianism isn't just a domestic issue, it's a global struggle. The rise of China, with its massive technological advancements and geopolitical reach, has shown that authoritarianism is alive and thriving in the 21st century. As of 2020, China's global economic influence exceeded $15 trillion. While democracies debate climate change, authoritarian regimes like China and Russia can enforce swift policies. In contrast, the US and Europe struggle with consensus. The West's struggle with authoritarianism is also seen in Russia's increasing influence in Europe, especially through disinformation campaigns. In 2016, Russian interference in the US election became one of the most widely discussed instances of foreign meddling. The struggle isn't just military, it's ideological. In 2021, a poll found that nearly 50% of global citizens had more favorable views of China than the US. The fight for the future isn't just between two systems of governance, it's a battle of influence, culture, and global power. Make sure to subscribe and click on the notification bell for more exciting content as we continue to explore the world of politics.